Hello, everyone. I hope you all are doing well this afternoon. Thank you all for coming out. This is great to see such a crowd here in Rutland. I really want to thank everyone here at the library for supporting this program. My name is Jacob Pelletier. I'm one of the program officers here with Vermont Humanities, and I'm excited to introduce you all for this very special event to Ray Vega talking on the evolution of jazz. And we expend our...
We're going to switch that up a little bit. As we go, we're coming up with some different ideas, but that's the way we work as jazz musicians.
Right? It's constantly evolving, right? Constantly evolving, always doing something new. And so we would like to extend our thanks to all of our partners and underwriters who make this program possible, especially at Vermont Humanities. But the sponsors for this entire Snapshot season is the Vermont Department of Libraries and the Institute of Museum and Library Services. So this afternoon we come together from across the state to listen, to learn, to be inspired. And before we begin, a few quick housekeeping items. First off, we'll have Bridget Butler, the bird diva, coming to do another presentation here at Rutland this coming Saturday at 11 a.m. So if you want to learn about ornithology and kind of all the history, especially as we get our migrating birds leaving us here in Vermont, come check that out. There will be a giveaway of a birding backpack for one lucky winner, so make sure to come on out for that this weekend. And then there will not be a Snapshot event next week due to the Thanksgiving holiday, but we will be back on Wednesday, November 29th at 7 o'clock p.m. with author and scholar Rick Winston talking about the films of the 1950s. So related to our Vermont Reads Choice of last night at the Telegraphic Club as well, but it'll be live streamed, so be sure to check out our website to get that information and the link to watch that at home. And now is my pleasure to introduce you to our speaker. A native of the South Bronx, Ray Vega is a veteran of the bands of Tito Puente, Ray Barreto, Mongo Santamaria, Mario Bualza, Hector Lavoe, Johnny Pacheco, and Larry Harlow, to just name a few. Ray has performed and or recorded with Nicholas Payton, Joe Henderson, Josh Santos, Lionel Hampton, Mel Torme, the Spanish Harlem Orchestra, Paquito de Rivera, the Chico Ofarillo Afro-Cuban Jazz Orchestra, Jazz at Lincoln Center, Afro-Latin Jazz Orchestra, Celia Cruz, Paul Simon, Diane Schuer, Jeanne Bryson, the Caribbean Jazz Project, Pete Escovedo and Sheila E., Michael Camilo, Eddie Palmieri, and Pancho Sanchez. Ray has established himself as one of the innovators of the international jazz and Latin music scene, a multi-talented trumpeter, percussionist, composer, arranger, and educator. He presents jazz from a refreshingly original and contemporary perspective. So let's give a round of applause for Ray and his quartet.
One, two. I'll have my radio voice on. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, so when I was contacted by Jacob, I said, well, maybe I'll give a discussion on the evolution of jazz. But I said, but I'd like to keep it a little bit open-ended because you never know when you have to switch gears. I believe that's part of what we do as jazz musicians. We're constantly improvising. My wife is a wonderful cook, and she tells me I don't like to use recipes. I go with what's happening at that point, and she'll switch directions in the middle of preparing a meal. And I think that's kind of like the same thing as what we do as musicians. We just kind of switch things up. I'll even do this sometimes when I'm teaching a particular class at UVM. I might switch gears at that moment, let them know everything's, don't worry, it's in this syllabus, but we'll walk through this. And it's just important to be ready and to be present in what you're doing. So what we're going to do today is we're going to have kind of an open-ended presentation. We're going to play some, we're going to talk some. What I want to focus on, first we're going to play something, just a basic blues, although blues is not basic. Blues is part of the great American sound of music, that the sound that has been given to the world, which is strictly an American development. But we're going to play a blues and the jazz swing style, and then we're going to change it up and add something to it. But we're only going to play the melody. Then we're going to have the melody played again, then we're going to show you what the magic is. The magic in what we do is the improvisational elements of the music. None of the things that we're going to improvise are predetermined. We respond to what's happening as we play together. It's like I tell this to my students at UVM, I tell them, it's like having a great conversation over a wonderful meal. We all sit together. You might have an idea of something you want to discuss and talk, but the way that the conversation goes, hi, you can make yourself comfortable, go ahead. But what I tell my students is like, well, you get together, you have a conversation, and you might want to be able to get into something, but it switches directions, and it goes, and a lot of good things get covered, but we're all in the moment, and we're creating. Beautiful conversation is the same thing like the beautiful development of music. So, I think in many ways we've lost the ability of really, how should I say, really working on our own art of conversation. Conversation is such an important thing to be able to communicate and stuff like that. That's what we're doing. And it's not like, well, let's try this thing. But first what we're going to do is, before anything, I'd like to tell you that that's Michael Hardigan on the piano. That's Scott Dean on the congas. Beza Carr on the drums. Giovanni Rovetto on the bass. And I'm Ray. So we're going to do something, just a 12-bar blues written by one of the great composers and instrumentalists of the music, Mr. Milt Jackson. This is something called Bag's Groove. We're just going to play the melody. Then we're going to stop, and then we're going to change something with it. Then we're going to do it all over again, and then improvise. And if you're in the middle of the whole thing, want to ask us something, and when we finish it, we kind of leave the question and answer towards the end. But remember your questions, and we hope you enjoy it. So thank you. Thank you. One.
Let's see what the trumpet sounds like in here. Oi. Whoa, I gotta be careful. Just the melody. 1, 2. Oh, 1, 2. And that was just 12 measures of music. Now, something really beautiful happened in the latter part of the 1940s. The great trumpeter Dizzy Gillespie decided that he wanted to add a different sound to his ensemble. And he went to a dear friend of mine, Mr. Mario Bauza, and he asked him, I want to change the sound of the jazz rhythms that we play are one kind of step. And give us that swing feel, right? 1, 2, right? And so Dizzy was like saying, I want to get something a little bit different. And Dizzy had been watching the Machito Orchestra at places like the Park Plaza, etc. These are places, dance halls in East Harlem that there were where the Latin bands played. And he would watch these percussionists, especially playing that instrument, which is the conga. And so Dizzy said, he goes to Mari and he goes, I want somebody who plays with those big tom-toms. and then it was like, Mario says, I know who to get. And so he got a guy named Chano Pozo. So when Chano Pozo joined the band, he added a completely different flavor. So you heard the swing feel of what we were doing. Now we're going to do the same thing. Now we're adding the congas. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. I want you to swing Latino. And I want
swing.
No. We're going to be, I want you to do like you're playing the Latin band. So he's doing the groove that a gentleman, a friend of mine, Ray Barretto, used to play on many great jazz recordings. But now you're going to swing like in a Latin band. You don't need to play you don't need to go pop, 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 pop. You just need to do your Latin thing. But you don't need to emphasize 2, 3. Or 1, 2, 1, 2. simplistic melody, da da. Sing it with me. No, sing it. Bum, ba-ba-dum, 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 bum, and it repeats. Da dum, da dum, da dum, da dum, dum. Boy, if Milt Jackson heard me singing right now, he would go, no. Da, 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 and it ends. It's a 4-bar phrase repeated 4 times. 3 times, sorry. Now, yeah, okay, that's cool. But we do more than that. So now what we're going to do is play it the way we would play it if you went to a concert and or some kind of a presentation. And again, mind you, nothing of what we're doing is pre-planned when it comes to the improvisations. We all respond to each other. Well, that's another thing. And you'll hear it, okay? 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. the magic in the music. And see, we could be doing this, but this is your 50% of what this is. So if people would respond, yeah, that's cool, yeah, you can say, yeah, that's cool. Say it with me. Yeah. Oh, come on now, Rob. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, oh, right. So you can clap after. That's groovy. Did you say groovy? Yeah. Yeah, man. You're speaking my language, fella. Don't let the white head fool you, fellas. All there, baby. I'm a lot older than you think. But yeah, so if we play music and the audience is not feeling the groove, then we kind of, it's okay, but we'd rather know that we're connecting to the audience and that people are feeling like they're part of it. So yeah, that's, you're 50% of what we do. If we play and there's no, like, we're not reaching people, at least I'm of that school of thought, that the music has to reach people, make them feel good. You know, Art Blakey said jazz should take the dust, the art of jazz is to take the dust, it takes the dust off of everyday life and helps you see things differently. That's what Art Blakey said. I like that, the dust of everyday life. So jazz should do that. Now we're adding jazz. This is jazz with a Latin flavor, but we can mix it up. We are children of the 20th and 21st century, so we've heard a lot of different things, and we mix things up, and we go along and we approach it in a creative fashion, you know, and I hope you enjoyed that. That was a conversation. I noticed I even changed the way that I played the melody when I did it with the Latin flavor, because it kind of gave me a different lilt, a different way of hearing it, and that's okay. That's totally okay. So let's do something by, let me think here. Let's do something by Juan Tizo. Let's do something called Caravan. We're going to do something by the valve trombonist with the Duke Ellington Orchestra from San Juan, Puerto Rico. His name was Juan Tizol. He played with the Ellington Orchestra for many years. There is interesting footage from 1931 from a movie called Check and Double Check. This was a Amos and Andy film. All of the individuals in the movie who are portraying African Americans are actually white people in blackface and doing their Amos and Andy thing. But every member of the Duke Ellington Orchestra, when they perform in that film, they are elegant and beautiful, and they look lovely, and they are awesome. They look very elegant. They're wearing the tuxedos. They're doing a party up in Westchester County. I won't talk about the Amos and Andy part of it. That's just part. You can find it on the internet. I actually have a copy that I play for my students at school. But when the Ellington Orchestra plays, they're beautiful. They look wonderful. But a little footnote to this, there were two members of the Ellington Orchestra at the time. One was Barney Bigard, who was a Creole of color, as they call it, which is like my complexion, right? Creole of color. And then Juan Tizol was like me, Puerto Rican, same kind of complexion. What happened when they filmed that, they had to go in blackface. They had to blackface. So Juan Tizol was in blackface, and Barney Bigard are in blackface. So if you see that film, you go, boy, that looks interesting, but that's not how I remember Barney Bigard looking. So they're in blackface because at that time it was not acceptable in our culture, in American society at the time, for any of these bands to have a multiracial band. It couldn't be perceived that way because these guys were much lighter skinned. And in black and white footage, they very well could have looked as if they were white and not like my skin complexion. But anyway, this is a composition that Juan Tizol wrote. It's called Caravan, and it's still considered one of the, even till this day, the Ellington Orchestra still performs it. Ellington's been gone since the early 1970s, but the band still exists, just like the Count Basie Orchestra. And so we're going to do our rendition of Caravan, and guess what? I don't know how we're going to play it. We're just going to kind of like start something. We know the melody, so we'll take it, and then we'll do as we... Now, we have certain rules. We have to be in the same key, obviously. You don't want to do let's do it in F, you do it in C. No, we won't do anything like that. We all know what we're going to do. But rhythmically and interaction-wise, you don't know what's going to happen, and that's the magic of it. Again, we like to I like to perform like on the edge and always, because if I'm on the edge, I have to be on my toes and I have to be present and I can change things around last minute because I don't want to do exactly what I did yesterday. I don't want to do that. I want to mix it up. That's the way it keeps life exciting. Okay?
Right.
But are you having a good time thus far? Yeah. Oh, I need this? Oh my god! Oh
For the
my!
people at
Oh,
home.
for the people!
You want to throw this in your
I'm
back pocket?
so sorry. Hello, people. How are you? Hello. Hello. How are you? Yes, we're doing the drug bust right now. Yeah, watch me. We're doing it. Arrest them. No, I'm just kidding. No. Okay, so I'm really sorry about that. Hello, people in television land. How are you? I was talking about you the whole time. No, I'm just kidding. So we're gonna do a Caravan by Juan Di Sol. It's in 3/2. That's one of the markers that we have. Same key. A one, vamp at 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, yeah. Did you like that? That's good. That's good. I like that. And you clapped after the soloist. Oh my God, that's awesome. You know, so much has changed. You know, when I first came up to Vermont, I would do concerts a lot of times, like with the students at UVM. The kids would be playing great, and the audience was like this. I would go, you can enjoy yourself. This is not the symphony. You know, but even in the symphony, I want to see people like, that's awesome. See, it's about being in the moment. And I'm going to talk, but this is part of the discussion. When my daughter, who's now 35, when she was about 3.5 years old, we went to the New York Philharmonic's children's concert, and they were playing Tchaikovsky's Romeo and Juliet. So we're sitting there, and here's the New York Philharmonic, and they start playing, and my little girl grabs my hand and sits back with her eyes closed, and she goes, "Oh, Daddy, this is so beautiful." Had she not been in the moment and thinking about, wow, we're going to go to FAO Schwartz after this, and Dad's going to spend a whole lot of money on some toys for me, you know, because the firstborn always gets taken to FAO Schwartz. You know, by the time the third kid comes around, we're going to Lionel Kitty City and going for the real discounts. But I'm going to be, so she didn't think about that. She was in the moment. She went, oh, this is so beautiful. I'll never forget that. So that's the whole thing, being present and enjoying these masterful musicians, which I'm so happy. By the way, also, just a little footnote, we all live in Vermont. We didn't come in from some other place. A lot of times what happens locally, the local mindset is that we're expecting like artists to come from someplace else to make us feel good about the art. And these folks are from right here in the state. And so, yeah, big kudos to these gentlemen. Because they all could have done the opposite of what I did, come from New York up here. They all could have went to New York. Actually, Mike was in Chicago for how long? 8 years in Chicago, raising some ruckus over there, you know. And you were in Boston how many years?
4 years.
4 years in Boston. And then, Gaze, his whole thing was like, well, the fishing's not good in Boston. You know, because all of his pictures on the internet, man, he's pulling these fish out. You know, it's like, you're not going to do that. Matter of fact, one of the great saxophonists that recently moved to Vermont, Marty Fogel, his whole thing is like, you know, he's from New York City. He's from the New York area. He's a great jazz tenor saxophonist who now lives in Colchester. But his whole thing was like, the fishing is amazing. And that's what got him thinking about it. Okay, we're going to do something by the great pianist, Mr. Herbie Hancock. I think Herbie right now has got to be about, he's about 80 years old now. Still out playing music and raising hell, or heaven, however you'd like to look at it. This is a beautiful piece by Herbie Hancock titled Butterfly. Okay? We hope you like the sounds, and I'll keep tabs of the time so you can get all of your questions in. If you have no questions, I'll be very upset, class. I'll be very upset. Just have some questions. Okay. 1, 2, 1, B. we're gonna do a composition by one of the great masters who recently left us. Speaking of Wayne Shorter, right on. There's a fantastic documentary of his life. It's currently on Amazon Prime. It's called Zero Gravity. It's unbelievable. The story of Wayne Shorter is unbelievable. One of the true great composers and saxophonists and visionaries of the music. The tune that we're going to play is something that he wrote while he was a member of the Miles Davis Quintet, the second great quintet, which is the one, of course, with Wayne Shorter, Ron Carter on bass, Tony Williams on drums, Herbie Hancock on piano, and of course, Miles Davis on trumpet. This is something called Footprints. And let's see what happens. 6/8, not really 3/4, but more of a 6/8. I'm telling him what to do.
Just a little guidance.
Little guidance, you know. You know, I got to help the brother out. No, I'm just kidding. Where's Jacob? How are you, sir? Shall I take the microphone now to ask questions? Or I'm not going to ask any questions. You are.
Yes, the audience will.
So did you have an okay time? Yeah! So, okay, so that goes, oh yeah. So that's Michael Hartigan. Currently living in Arlington. Michael Hartigan, originally from Potsdam, New York. And then went to Boston to study, then went to Chicago to hang out and play music. And how long have you been in town now?
Like 7 years?
7 years in the Burlington area, and he's working with everybody. So Michael Hartigan on piano, come on. Man. That's the instrument that Ricky Ricardo made famous on I Love Lucy. Remember that? The conga drum. And that's Scott Dean from Burlington. Colchester? What? Colchester? Or Essex? Essex. I get the two places mixed up. Sorry. From Essex Junction or Essex, Vermont? Which one? Essex Junction. There's stories about Essex Junction, Vermont on the drums. Give it up for Gazer Carr on drums. Plainfield. From Plainfield, Vermont, Giovanni Rovetto on the bass. And as it was said earlier, I am originally from the South Bronx. Don't get scared. I'm from the South Bronx, but now I currently reside in South Burlington, Vermont. So I'm Ray. So do you have any questions?
Please use the microphone so our folks at home can hear you.
Yeah.
Just again, what was the name of that Amos and Andy film?
It's called Check and Double Check. Yeah, and there are segments of that. You can find segments of that online, but I actually bought the DVD. I purchased a DVD because it's important historical thing, to check out. It's wild, it's wild. When my students see it at school, they're like, what? Because we have a discussion about minstrelsy, et cetera, music from the 19th century, where they don't really get to see that kind of stuff. And then they see that, and they're flabbergasted, But it's, it's part of the conversation. But it's a typical early 1930s kind of film, And it's on it. It says, it has all the names, and it says, and Duke Ellington and his Cotton Club Orchestra, And it's there. And whenever Duke's on, Duke is Duke, and he's super elegant, looking beautiful, absolutely beautiful. Check and double check. Yes, yes.
Also, I've heard the Butterfly many times before.
Yes.
And I do like your version.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Lit and flying.
I love that. So wait a minute. What's your name again? Here you go. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. Just kidding. Thank you. That's so kind of you.
You mentioned that you get so much feedback from the audience. How can you tell that we're so into it even though we're just sitting there?
Because I can see heads moving. I can see feet moving.
Okay.
Yeah. And everybody's pretty much in play. Because you all came here for this. But it's interesting because it doesn't always happen. It doesn't always happen, but I'm sure you know that too. Sometimes it depends. And also, it could be the problem of the artists themselves. Sometimes the artists create an entire wall, like, we are very deep, and what we do is so important, and you just won't understand. So you just have to kind of try to figure out what we're doing, and that. And there are people that do that in the jazz world, and that's my biggest complaint. But the youngsters coming up, I grab some of the students and tell them, guess what? You better learn how to speak to an audience. You got to turn your back around. That only worked for Miles Davis. That only worked for Miles. Turn yourself around and talk to your audience. Another question? Right there. Oh, there's a bun back there. I'm sorry. And then you come over. We'll get it over there. Okay, please.
Hey, you're right.
Hello.
As a former ballroom and Latin and swing dancer,
Yeah.
there is quite a conversation between dancers and musicians.
Yeah.
And having danced before while you played, I just want to say you are incredible.
Oh, thank you. Well, you know, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean, did I cut you off? I think, you know, because if we're talking about the story of jazz in America, remember that jazz in its earliest stages was a dance music. It was coming out of the blues, but it was coming out of ragtime. Ragtime was a dance music. And that's what helped it make it so popular. Remember, jazz was not a fringe art form. Especially in the 1920s, it was the music of the day, which connected to dancers. Now, my time in playing with the bands of Tito Puente, for instance, we would do jazz festivals, and then as soon as he switched into Oye Como Va and all the salsa stuff, everybody jumps out and dances because the music is a dance music and it still connects. I think that was one of the major disconnects. We're just discussing that in jazz history this week, where a lot of folks felt uncomfortable with the bebop movement because the tempos were too fast to dance to. So a lot of people got away from that, and that's at the period of time. I mean, America had been enamored with Latin music since the 20s, but when the 40s came around, when you had the Palladium era, and you had bands like Machito and Tito Puente, Tito Rodriguez, people were flocking to dance to those bands. And not just Latinos, we're talking about African Americans, Italians, Jews, everybody. I used to travel with Tito. Whenever we went to Florida, the folks would come out and say, this is the husband would come out like this, and the wife would go, Tito. This is the wife talking, Tito with a cigarette. How you doing, Tito, honey? And they knew everybody in the band. And I was just telling this to my students. I said, and you had to, because they get uncomfortable sometimes. I said, you had to see the legs on these women. They were dancing 3-4 times a week, still dancing mambo, doing dance, what do you call that? What do they call those? Socials. So they're dancing, and they're all into the music. And so the dancing part of it, I think, was the big connection with why things like the mambo movement was so great, because it was at a time that the American big band scene started to decline because of economics. It was difficult to keep those bands on the road, but so many people became enamored. It captured the imagination of the American public, with shows even like I Love Lucy. You got to see that band. Incidentally, I did work with Marco Rizzo, the piano player from I Love Lucy. Marco, yeah, his name was really Marco Rizzo. I worked with him. Anyway, yeah. You have a question there? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I have a question about the general state of jazz studies.
Mm.
Given your teaching at UPM, how is this music, how are these traditions being communicated to the younger generation?
Well,
in a world where Beyonce and Taylor Swift
That's a great
seem to
question.
dominate, how is this going to be transmitted to a new generation, broadly and in particular here in Vermont?
Well, I'm of the mindset that I want my students to know everything from Louis Armstrong and Bex Beiderbecke and Paul Whiteman and Ellington. I want them to learn about that, but I don't want them to be disconnected with the music of the day, because it has to stay, in order for the music to remain vibrant, it has to connect with what's happening in its time. So those kind of connections with things like I don't have a problem. Two young women that I've mentored, one of them was a former student of mine, played with Beyonce's band. And I'm happy that they're earning a living doing that. One of them, Crystal, God bless her soul, she was out with Beyonce. She's 8 months pregnant, and she had her, I know I look that way too, but she was out there, and she was dancing, playing her trumpet, and guess my most important thing was she knows the tradition of the music. She was mentored by Clark Terry, but she's earning a living. And I think that's important for these young. I think it's more important for them to learn about the structures of jazz, the beautiful history of it, but they need to be able to create something that's going to speak to the current listeners of the music, but still be able to have the respect of knowing who Dizzy Gillespie was. And that's where it gets kind of weird sometimes, because you got to remind them. But by and large, like the kids that I'm working with at a place like a UVM, they listen to all the new stuff that's out there, a lot of stuff I don't really follow. I'm not really into it because I just don't have the time. But I understand. I did the same thing when I was their age. I was listening to Earth, Wind, and Fire, Chicago. I could sing you all the tunes on what do you call that? Tapestry. Remember that record by Carole King? All the tunes on that. How about that record by Janis Joplin? Oh Lord, won't you buy me a color TV? We grew up listening to all of that stuff. Listening to Santana. But then I was also listening to Miles. And I was listening to Tito Puente, Tito Rodriguez. So I always had my finger on the pulse of what was happening at my time. So I think in order for the music to continue, I would rather see them making interesting strides into creating new approaches to the music than to create a thing where the music scene's archaic and it's like a museum piece and it gets presented. That's okay, but that's the death of the music and that's one of the connections, not just with jazz, but with classical music. I tell these kids, open your mind. You have to be able to try some different things and maybe create some different music and play some different styles and be ready. My main thing with the students is I want them to be employable because debt is evil, and if they can get a job playing with an R&B band, earning some living, while they put their time into learning, well, they may not be playing the music sometimes, but they'll always be the ones that are going to support it. They're the ones that are going to go out and support it and listen to it. They may not be out there performing it, because it takes a lot to want to perform the music. It's a lot of sacrifice. I don't know if I answered your question, but I try to keep it real that way. Like, I don't go there telling them, well, you only got to listen to Charlie Parker and Joe Henderson and Bud Powell and everything else is garbage, because they do that in a lot of institutions. And I just tell them, well, I'm not really into Jay-Z or like I know that about that music. I don't know nothing about no Jay-Z. I'm not into, they're going to listen to whatever they're going to listen to, and because we all did it ourselves. Larry Coryell was talking about, well, we loved Miles Davis and Coltrane, but we were listening to Elvis, and we were listening to the Beatles. And we were listening to, what's this guy? Mr. The folk guy that everybody hated when he went electric. Bob Dylan. I'm sorry. I'm having a senior moment, sorry. So Bob Dylan, so they were listening to all of that stuff, and the music they created was awesome. It's all good. It won't die. It's like that whole thing of like, well, if you only listen to that, it's going to, I don't really believe that. There are some kids playing some great modern jazz, and they are total experts in classic hip-hop of the 90s and stuff. And they're, you'd be surprised how many jazz musicians know classic hip-hop. I'm not one of them. But, and I'm not putting it down, because I saw all of that music developing. I'm from the South Bronx. I saw all of that happening, but I was never drawn to it. I don't know if I answered your question, but that was a good one.
In Vermont, Vermont
Yes.
is the smallest state,
Yeah.
very rural,
Yep.
very white.
Yep.
How does it kind of translate from your experience in New York City, Chicago?
Well, this is the whole thing. I keep every community should be what it is, and enjoy it. I think Vermont should have its own jazz sound. I don't want them to try to imitate something that they're not experiencing. The reason why the New York thing might sound the way it does is because whatever they're experiencing in New York. So if Vermont has a kind of a different vibe or to it, that's awesome. Because for the longest, Chicago had its own sound. New York had its own sound. Philadelphia, Washington, D.C. had their own sounds. But now with the internet and everybody studying out of the two same books, everybody's starting to sound the same. So I'm really about regional sounds. Why did they call it cool jazz from L.A. and not hard bop like they were calling it on the East Coast? It's just two different sounds and just the way that life is. But so if there's a lot of musicians in Vermont, a lot of musicians. We just need more venues to be able to perform it. That's the whole thing. We need more venues. We need more venues. We need people to take a chance on it. Take a chance on it. And I'm not talking about the kind of place that you got to go there and pull out a gold card, to be able to get in. I'm talking about keep it rustic. The musicians got to get paid. That's the whole thing. They're still trying to keep the prices down like it's 1980. And we're still earning the same money while the drinks have gone up a gazillion times over. But so musicians got to get paid. But not to get into that. But we have a small community of players. You have players in Southern Vermont. You have Eugene Newman and his folks down at Jazz Center there. They're doing whatever they can to keep the music alive. We have a scene in the Burlington area of musicians there. You know, we don't have a lot of corporate support or anything like that, but we do whatever we can. You were going to ask something else? Okay, the microphone over there. Where is it? Oh,
We got two on dock.
oh okay.
So
You
my
guys
question
good?
is about Latin style.
Where are you? There you go.
So you talked about Bag's groove,
Yeah.
and then you talked about playing it with Latin style. So
Yeah.
what is the difference? Is it the time signature, the rhythm?
No, the
Is
time
it
signature is-
flourishes in the, do all the different musicians do something different?
Yes. Yeah, what happens there, once you add the congas to it, the way that the drummer's playing has to work with what the conga's doing. And then the bass has to work with the conga. The piano can comp the same way, or the piano can decide to do what some people call a montuno. Would you play like a little guajeo montuno? Yeah, so play me like a blues, play me a blues at F, just comping the chords. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? So, I bet you this is my wife. You gonna get the milk, honey? Yes, it is. Hi, I'm looking at 100 people here, honey. Everybody say hi to Cookie. Hi, are you okay? She goes, aw, you're interrupting me. I'm in the middle of something special here. My wife says, hey. Okay, sorry, see you later. Bye, hon. So now, darn, she messed up my groove. So you heard the jazz thing. Now hear the Latin style. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's still the blues. Okay, so everything's changing. The bass, play me like a quick tumbao. 1, 2, everybody, so you can, so play me a walking bass first. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right, we know that. Okay, but then he has to do this when we go Latin. 1, 2, 1, 2, everyone. So it changes the entire sound of it. You know, so I believe it was in Manteca by Dizzy Gillespie. It wasn't so bing bong. That was the first time that they had actually written out like a bass line as opposed to was that? Chano wrote that part, and then Dizzy wrote the bridge. So Chano Pozo wrote that, gave him the ideas of and the trombones do this, but then the bridge, that's Dizzy. Yeah. Any other questions? Yes, class. I'm so bad.
First, thanks.
Oh, thank you.
This is kind of, I'm realizing a different version of the same question, but we'll go for it. I remember listening to some ethnomusicologist on some podcast or something, just blowing my mind, tying like Louie Louie, rock and roll, you know, everyone knows it, 145, to like early Latin jazz, maybe
Sure.
Suave stuff.
Yeah.
I'm just wanting you to like also blow my mind. What's the wackiest like connection that I never would have guessed at? Sort of like you just demonstrated.
Well, that's the reason why they talk about that is because of the New Orleans thing of that's clap. So all of those, the New Orleans, I call it the northernmost city of the Caribbean. That's what I call it, because of the trade that was going on between New Orleans. It's a port city, so they're sending stuff out from there to Tampa, which is a port city. Also, where San Juan, Puerto Rico, Havana, Cuba, Port-au-Prince. Then all of the countries. The ports on the Mexico side. So there's all this stuff going on. They're moving provisions back and forth, and then let's face it. What was it? The Louisiana Purchase, 1803 or 1806? 1803. That was the game changer right there. Because that area, that entire region that was a French territory, that was French. Now, why is that important? Not that the French were the French, as well as the Spanish, allowed their slaves to keep a drum tradition happening. The colonies which were colonized by the Brits did not allow the slaves to keep a actual hand drumming tradition and or a dance tradition. So if you see a lot of this, like the holiness churches where they're going boom, boom, bop, boom, 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 boom. They were creating a rhythmical element because they couldn't have the drum. What happened with the Louisiana Purchase is that you had slaves that were in New Orleans that they kept a tradition of a percussion tradition. Plus there were Spaniards there. That's why Cuba, Puerto Rico, the Dominican Republic, Colombia, Venezuela, they all have a very heavy, so the countries were Portugal, France, and Spain. Those three countries, the areas that they had conquered in what's called the New World, they allowed the slaves to keep a drum tradition. Let's face it, the Portuguese were in Brazil, and that is the largest black population outside of Africa. And they've got a drum tradition there that is mighty. Okay, you look at the Caribbean, the Spanish Caribbean, there's a drum tradition there all of those traditions connect to the west coast of Africa. Haiti, you might have a palo, you'll have the music associated with voodoo, all of that, west coast of Africa. So when that's happening and percolating in New Orleans, you got all these rhythms that are just, look at the vibrancy, just look at the food, jeez. The food tells you this is an international city. So that story of New Orleans, it's like no other place on the planet. If I lived there, I'd be much bigger than I am right now because the food is just unbelievable. You have all these multicultural things happening there. So the whole thing of can you play me a second line thing, like a second line groove? Now we're gonna switch it to Latin. 1, 2, 3, 4. Tumbao, C7, 2. 1 and 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. Bang, bang, okay, bang, bang, bing, bang, bang. All right. So all of that connects itself. It's a beautiful mixture of. It's like the vibrancy of any people. You look at their food and it speaks wonders. So yeah, rock and roll, man, that kick drum, that was affected by look at all the great rock and rollers that came out of New Orleans. That rhythm is something else. Can we move it on? Did I answer your question, bro? Yes. Okay, cool, thank you. Hello.
That last thing that you just did reminded me of the Southern College football drummers.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you're talking about the historically black colleges where they got the drum line, totally. The drum lines. Oh no, they don't fool around. Yeah.
So, what is the ideal size for an audience for you
to play? Ooh, that's a good question. What is the ideal size? I don't care if it's 5 people and they're grooving out. I don't care. I play at the Hotel Vermont every Wednesday. Sometimes we have 5 people. Sometimes we have 100 people. If they're in the groove, I'm happy. If they're in the back talking about stockbrokers and all that stuff, I usually start looking at it. And the worst part about it is, my own personal friends, they show up and they sit right in front. Now they want to talk in the middle. So I'll be playing. I'll go, stop talking. Because I'm always going to be a crotchety old New Yorker. Stop talking already. Stop. So they'll do that. They'll sit in the front. They'll go, and it's just like, but anyway, I don't know if whatever. I don't care. If they come out and enjoy themselves, if it's 8 people, that's cool. It's all good.
This is intimate, whereas sometimes you see something like at the Paramount, there's 800 people, and then it's...
That's rough. It's not as intimate. It's more of a, what's the word I want to use here? At that point, it's more like an event, and they have the. And then what happens in a situation like that? They usually have to crank up the PA system, so it's kind of loud, so it loses the beauty of the acoustic part of the music. You know what I'm saying? So that's where it gets tricky. It's hard to be intimate with an audience that's that far away from you. But, you know, when I worked with Tito Puente, he can work that audience into a frenzy. He'll joke around with them. I saw Dizzy Gillespie do it. He would get to the front and talk to them and bring these people in, and they'd be loving it and laughing. And then he would play things like Things to Come and freak everybody out. It was just, so he knew how to talk to the audience.
If you were designing a club, how many would you see?
That's good. That's a real good question. I would probably seat it with, if I want to make a lot of money, I have to have a kitchen in there to make some money. We got to talk about that. This is the cook guy here. His family's into restaurants. It all depends on the size of the venue, what you want to, like for instance, the what was the name of that joint? Slugs, where it was on 3rd Street, man. That's the club where Lee Morgan was killed by his wife. I got married 2 doors from Slugs. That's funny. Actually, it's not. But anyway, but yeah. So Slugs was a bar. You see, that's where we make things complicated. If you have a bar that's owned by somebody that really loves the music, all they have to do is maybe spend some money to get a piano in there, put it over there, ask people to pay some money to come in and enjoy the music, because that's where the music was created. The music was created in places like that, not in universities. Universities for them to learn the math, but that's not where the music gets created. The music gets created in venues where people can experiment and play music and interact with an audience. If the audience is looking at you like, then you probably need to check yourself out. Which is great. We want to play music for people. You know, I do. You know, I remember one of the greatest compliments. I did the Orleans Jazz Festival with Ray Barretto's band. Now, Ray Barretto was known as a major salsa guy, but at the time he had his jazz group. And so it was in the cover of the paper the next day. It says, "So beautiful, jazz that we could dance to." And let me tell you something. He wasn't trying to play mambo. He was playing jazz tunes, but they had a Latin rhythm, but folks were grooving to it, and they were connecting to it. I think the connection is the big one. I don't know if I answered your question. It all depends. You don't need a lot of people to make it fun. If you want to make it big enough that makes it economically feasible, then that's another thing. But folks up here, hey, if they spend, how much money does a person go in? You want a latte? I'm going to go to Starbucks. You want a latte? They go to $740, $750 on lattes for everybody in the office. Why do that when you can go do that and support some musicians? I'm not putting down Starbucks, sorry. Any other questions? Yes.
Great.
And you can ask these guys questions too.
Yeah, my favorite club in Chicago, you had to ask the drummer, excuse me, to get to the bathroom.
Oh my goodness.
That's kind of fun. I have a question about improvisation.
Yes.
You're a great musician, wealth of experience and knowledge about jazz, but you also like to play on the edge.
But I also what now?
You like to play on the edge.
Yeah.
So your solo comes and you start out there improvising. Do you ever end up in a dead end? In a cul-de-sac?
Oh no, I know how to get myself out of it. I've gotten, no, check this out. That's good. Well, you know what? It's funny because Leonard Feathered said about me, he said Vega plays with an eccentric bent towards the avant-garde, which I found to be, I was playing in Mongo Santamaria's band. What are you talking about, Leonard? What are you talking? But I mean, because I kind of went out there and I was young and dumb, and I was just trying to go for some stuff. Oh, as a young guy, I got plenty of cul-de-sacs. Cul-de-sacs, and then the neighbors came out and kicked my butt. It wasn't like a cul-de-sac. It was like, get out of here, you know. But you have to learn. That's like anything else. You know, it's a conflict resolution. Matter of fact, don't laugh, but I gave a talk to a group about this size of a particularly large international, multinational corporation, and they wanted to ask me and the guys in the band that I was playing with, they wanted to talk about conflict resolution. How do we take care of things when we're in the middle of the creative process? How do we get ourselves out of a hole? Because they couldn't figure it out, but I don't care because they paid my They paid like 2 months of rent for me from like 45 minutes. I was like, yeah, whatever. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, you know what it is? That's part of the learning process. That's part of the learning process because I've had some of the great band leaders like pull my coat, because they don't do that anymore because the older guys don't want to talk to the young guys hard. But I've had some older guys tell me, I know this is for young people who are out there talking and listening, so I won't use that language, but pull my coat and tell me, you are not taking care of business. Oh, yeah, no, this is a process. We were talking on the way up. I'm a student of music. In January, it'll be 50 years that I'm trying to play the trumpet. 50 years. Trying to play the trumpet. Okay, hey, what's up? All right.
Isn't there a story where Miles and Coltrane were playing together, and Coltrane, may not have been Coltrane.
Yeah,
Coltrane said, I'm having fun, but I'm not getting into this. Miles said, take the effing horn out of your mouth.
Yeah, because he says, Miles said, why are you taking these why are you taking these long solos? And he goes, well, I don't know how to get out. And he goes, take the horn out your mouth. You know? So I got those recordings, man, where Train will take, there's some really good recordings from, that were put out by French radio back in the 90s. And it was one tour of Miles with Coltrane and one tour with Miles with Sonny Stitt. Sonny keeps it Sonny's is in November, the Coltrane one is like in April of that year, and Coltrane is taking long solos. Sonny Stitt kept it real. But Coltrane would take some, and I love all of it. I just sit there like, yeah.
What's the derivation of scat? You know what
Scat?
Yeah.
Scat is my way of singing the lines that I hear somebody performing, like a particular jazz line. And I try to get my students, I says, if you can sing it, you can play it. So I'm not a scatter, but I can do that. So scatting, if I hear I'm going to do it in a different key. Ba ba do dee boo be da zee bo do the bee bo do boo ba. Now I can do the line, but I want to be able to copy lines. And if I hear like a Coltrane solo, more of the beat, I would tell people to kind of copy the beboppers more. You know, people like Bud Powell and Dizzy. Although Dizzy solos are hard to copy. Charlie Parker. Because that's all the language. So the scatting part of it, and scatting is not specific to bebop, because you would on the recordings of the Hot 5 and Hot 7, Lewis, and one of the things he's just going zappa doo 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 sweet beat da, and then they said, Lewis, what happened? And he lied to everybody. He goes, oh, my music fell on the floor. That wasn't Lewis. His music. He was commenting sweet dee da. And then it gets more complicated, So those terms, that scatting thing, is where somebody came up with the term bebop. Bebop. But none of the jazz musicians that I know, Dizzy never used that term. James Moody never used that term. So that, because that music is like modern. It's the most modern form of improvisation in the 20th century. When that came on, it revolutionized everything. Now, how are you going to take such an amazing invention and give it such a dumb name like bebop? Like, I've talked it over. I'll talk it over with some of the older cats, and they'll just give me that look like, oh, you ain't, no. I mean, I had a phone call with one of my mentors. He calls me up and, hey, what are you up to? And I said, well, I've been subbing at Purchase, and I'm presenting some stuff on Hard Bop. And the phone got real quiet. I'm like, hello? And he goes, that's just some bullshit. And he said, we didn't call it that, man. That's modern music. I went, okay. I felt, he corrected me. I needed to hear that. But people have they have difficulties with the word jazz in general. And there are arguments about what the word means, etc. I'm okay. If Art Blakey was cool saying the jazz messengers, I'm okay using the word jazz. That's just my opinion. But I don't know if I answered your question. Okay. I have attention deficit disorder, so I'll go off topic real quick. Real quick. I think we're done?
let's give it up for Ray.
Wait a minute. One last one. One holdout. Right over there. Right over there. Right over there. Yes.
I've just got a comment to make why I'm here. I saw in the newspaper that there was a jazz ensemble coming here.
Uh-huh.
And that brought back some memories for me. That as I was listening to you today, I was stationed in Thailand back in the 70s, and I walked into I was in Bangkok, and I walked into this ensemble, or a hotel lobby, and I heard Johnny Mathis singing in a lounge. And I said, wow, they know Johnny Mathis. I walk into the lounge, and here's this little Filipino guy, mouth this wide, and sounded exactly like Johnny.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And so fast forward, I lived in Germany for 5 years, and near Frankfurt.
Oh, yeah.
And
I know it well.
my wife and I wandered around there, and we went down to I don't call it a bistro, a small place. It was called Jazz Life.
Uh-huh.
And we went in there and listened to some of the best jazz I've ever heard. And so fast forward, I was in the 70s, fast forward to today's newspaper, and I see a jazz ensemble here in a library, and I said, that brought back a memory. So I hear all your analysis of it and everything else, but it's gotta get the heart. And I said, I gotta go listen to this group because it brought back that memory
Oh.
of going to the jazz night.
That's it.
And thank you for just making that memory come alive.
Thank you.
Because that was an international group. I think the only thing I didn't see in this group was a saxophone.
Well, no, he's teaching. he's a UVM today. But I was actually just going to do it by myself. And then I thought to myself, you know, like we lost a lot of work in the summer because so many gigs got canceled. And I said, well, I was originally going to do it with just like a quartet, and then I had to switch things around. And then I went, okay, I'll get all these guys in, you know, whatever, and I'll take care of them.
Well, it was the greatest thing. It was people from all different countries in this one ensemble and playing together like you guys do. And that brought back such a wonderful memory, and you capitalized on that memory today. And thank you all very much for coming.
That's awesome. Thank you. That's awesome. We got it. Wait a minute.
Just curious where you put, just curious as to where you put Charlie Bird in the history.
Charlie Bird is one of the most important jazz guitar players who has never gotten his credit. End of story. End of story. Charlie Bird electrified his guitar before Charlie Christian. Just so you know.
I grew up in D.C. buying drinks when I was underage and listening to Charlie Bird at the Showboat Lounge.
Yeah, man.
In D.C.
Charlie Bird was one of the most important jazz musicians of all time, and didn't get his credit. I'm just going to say it. They don't know. No, doesn't get his credit. But he's a major innovator. Major innovator.
He was a major force in bringing the bossa nova music.
Of course, in a big way. Okay, is it time for people to leave because they're going, the lunch specials up the street. What happened?
What venues do you play at?
Well, in Vermont, Vermont, I dropped the T, I didn't say Vermont. Vermont. Here in Vermont, I play at the Hotel Vermont every Wednesday night. That's 41 Cherry Street. There is a place called the 126 in Church, what is that, College Street? College Street, 126 College Street. It's a venue that has a piano, acoustic piano, and it's more set up more like a jazz club. They do a jam session on the same night that I'm playing with my band. They do a jam session with young folks there. And then the next year on Thursdays, they do a regular Thursday night. But they also do jazz there on Friday and Saturday, but I don't get a chance to go there. But there aren't enough places, so tell people, we like jazz. Do something, because you got plenty of musicians that want to play the music. You know, There was, what was the place? Hugo's in Montpelier had a beautiful piano upstairs, and of course they got hit with the storm. They had to close the place up. I think they moved the piano away from there. But Hugo's was doing a Thursday night thing as well.
They're opening back up the old Black Door.
Yeah, they just opened 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Is that a fact?
Yeah, the old Black Door, which is the upstairs, yeah, everybody knew the old Black Door. They're opening again back there and doing music there. So you used to do music at the old Black Door.
Right.
These venues, right? Yep. I believe so. And they moved out, yeah.
And so Giovanni's family, they're the ones they're involved in Positive Pie, which got a major hit in Montpelier as well. But when they gonna bring music back up in there?
I don't know.
We gotta open up the place first.
It's just a shell because of the flood, but the only one doing music now in Montpelier is the Bent Nail Bistro, which is the old Langdon Street Cafe, Langdon Street. And then now Hugo's is coming up to open up and do some music there. That's about it.
And just so you know, there's a great educator in this area named Andrew Luce, who teaches, I believe, at the high school. He's a fabulous jazz trumpet player, and he now runs the Vermont High School, All-State High School jazz band stuff. But he's a fantastic trumpeter, studied at the Frost School of Music with my old colleague Brian Lynch, the great jazz trumpeter, and he's living in this community. There are lots of musicians in the community, and lots of musicians from all over the state that are willing to come to Rutland to play here. Actually, we played when did we play? Like 2 weeks ago? Yeah. Yeah, we played something at the church. It was the Sun Fest. What was it? The Solar Fest. We played at the Solar Fest. We were the last band up. We went on about 9:15. But yeah, and it was the same night of the big parade. So traffic was really crazy in town. But thank you so much, folks. Thank you.